Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlax here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some Magistus Dracotail gameplay. I switched back over to regular ranked ladder away from the Duelist Cup for these ones. So we're going to have some going second games here. First one's going to be up against Unchained, utilizing the new Mutiny in the Sky, relatively new, Mutiny in the Sky fusion package. Also, apologies if there ends up being any background noise, because they are doing some work pretty much right outside my window, but hopefully we caught them in a more quiet moment. Anyway, I'm not going to use Ash Blossom. Don't really feel the need to right off the bat. Just going to use Fulos as soon as Lurie hits the board. They're going to use Engraver for Sanct and then link off into the Requiem. See if we get anything interesting off the Fulos here. Find just another Rahu. Not really that great, honestly. They're going to go for a Lacrima. And then they're going to draw on Lockbird. I kind of don't know why they didn't do that on the first one, but maybe they just misclicked or something. I'm just going to assume it was a misclick. But our draws really weren't that great. It was just additional copies of both Malulu and Baku, which are really not that needed. I guess the second Malulu in hand is nice. It lets me have some more fusion options, but anyway, they're going to go for a sequence. And at this point, they are going to summon Aerial Eater. So I'm glad I ended up saving my Ash Blossom. I'm going to use it against the Aerial Eater. And I know their options for getting stuff out of the deck are really limited at this point, because they can't add cards. They can still use the Engraver in order to summon itself here. I thought maybe they would go into Caesar Pass. But they're actually going to use the Tracked Graveyard effect, using Engraver and Sequence in order to summon the Fiendsmith's Lacrima. Now they can go Fiendsmith's Lacrima effect in order to revive the Engraver. And then they're going to overlay their two fusion monsters. And that's how they're going to summon Caesar. But they're not done yet. Going to equip Sequence, send that off for the Necroquip, and then pass over them. So, okay, we just have to deal with a Caesar here. Not too bad. But again, we don't really draw that great a card here. A second Ketu Dracotail. However, it's actually better than you may think. Because here's the thing. Well, let's go normal summon Malulu, activate the other Ketu. And you might be seeing that, right? Activate the other Ketu, what do you mean? Well, Caesar negates the activation. And Ketu, as well as Rahu, say you can only activate one copy of this card per turn. So since the activation of Ketu was negated, I could simply add the other copy. However, I think it would have definitely been smarter for me to activate the Rahu instead and had my opponent negate that. Because then I could have done both Ketu and Rahu's effects during their turn. But yeah, I just wasn't really thinking in the moment. Either way, we are still able to get the Arthelian effect off. They're going to go for the Fiendsmith in Paradise here. I'm going to set up Sting and Flame for their follow-up turn. Arthelian's going to wheel the Phimena back to hand. Desiree effect is going to activate here, targeting the Malulu, but of course I can simply chain my Malulu here. Now Malulu plus Phimena are going to end up making the Golemel. And I can just battle over their board, and I have my trap card set up as well as the Golemel pop, and unfortunately was not able to set up the Phimena wheeling back into my hand, but we still have a lot here. They're going to go for Desiree, or sorry, for Engraver effects, putting back Desiree. I'm going to chain the Dracotail Sting here. They're going to chain a Ghost Bell and a Haunted Mansion. So I said, okay, that's fine. That resolves. Engraver gets to summon. But let's see what they do with that Engraver summon. They're going to link it off into Requiem. Requiem effect will activate. Gonna summon out Lacrima. Lacrima effect activates, dump Engraver. And then they activate Tracked from hand. So I can use Flame to negate Tracked, and then at this point, I can use Golemel to pop the Lacrima. Yeah, they already revived Engraver, so there was no way to get Engraver on the board while still having the ability to put the, oh, what do you call it? The, Requiem on as a material. They get to reset Sanct, but that's about it. And of course, at this point, I not only have the Rahu still, but even a Spenta that I drew there. So definitely had more than enough plays to finish them off on the follow-up turn. But let me show you another game here where I actually do more like Magistus stuff. Okay, so this is a going first duel against Sky Striker. I think this will be the only going first game in this video, but I really wanted to show this one because, again, I actually make a lot of use out of the Magistus stuff. Honestly, for me, I think the biggest argument against playing the Magistus engine in Dracotail is the fact that it just doesn't come up a lot. Like, a lot of the time, you really just need the Dracotail engine to win. And it kind of sucks if you open, like, you know, SPENTA plus Ketu, and you try to begin with SPENTA, and then they Joel you, and it's like, well, alright. Now Joel actually hurts me, whereas if I just done Dracotail stuff, Joel would have pretty much not done anything at all, you know? I mean, I guess the real answer is to activate Ketu first there, but that was just as an example. So, even though we got hit with the Fuelos here, we actually are still able to set up Golemel plus 3 face down cards. So my opponent's going to go for the Mecha Hornet drones, then summon Rose. I'm going to activate Horn and bounce the Rose. They're going to chain Ash Blossom. Yeah, it's pretty clear they're trying to summon an Ace 0 here, and I would rather that not happen, but they're going to get to do that here anyway. Or so I thought. It actually ended up being Azalea. Azalea is going to target my face-down Dracotail Sting. I'll chain that to get the Rose as well as one of their spells out of the graveyard, but they're going to chain a Ghost spell against the Sting. And then follow up with a Linkage. Now I am going to use the Flame on the Linkage here, because I really don't want them to summon 0 again. Now the Flame resolves, and I get to add SPENTA to my hand. Now, you might think SPENTA is only going to be useful for follow-up plays, but you'll see otherwise here shortly. They're going to use Engage in order to add Linkage, and I'm going to throw out my Fimena at this point. They're going to chain the Linkage, because they thought I was going to go for Arthelion, you know, bounce, or use the Golemel pop. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fuse Golemel with my SPENTA in hand. And now I can summon Zorora. Now when they go to activate their A0 effect, I simply chain Zorora to both negate and destroy Ace 0. And they don't have any more follow-up left in their graveyard, meaning they're forced to concede here. So that's a really kind of fun way where Magistus can come up outside of like a standard turn 1 combo, right? Again, you see SPENTA and you might think, oh, well, you can use that for follow-up, but I'm like, I got Fimena in hand. I could just summon Zorora during my opponent's turn. And of course, there's also the Iwas, I think it's called, the one that equips stuff. That's also another option. But there, I saw Zorora as a pretty clear line to out my opponent's last card, their Ace 0. All right, let's check out some more going second gameplay. Alright, here's a going second duel against Maliss. I think this was my first time? No. I think I have lost a couple of times to post-banless Maliss before this one, I think. At least once, it might have been 2, but... Going second here, got a solid amount of hand traps. I mean, we play a solid amount, 15. They're going to set in the normal summon the White Rabbit, so I didn't bother using the Veiler here. I'll just let them go TB11, and then I'll just chain Fuelos to that. If the set card really is another Maliss trap card, then it's probably going to be ideal to wait and use the Veiler on, like, Splash Mage, but it's also going to kind of depend on what they do here. They're going to throw out a Droll and Lockbird, which is pretty good for me, because it means they can't add off of Wicked or Secretary, even if they already have... not Secretary, Backup Administrator, rather, even if they already have the Backup Administrator in hand. Now here they're going to go Lizardos, no point in using Veiler because that banishes its cost. Revive Dormouse, Dormouse banishes the March Hare effect in order to add back. Of course my Nibiru is live at this point, but we can definitely wait and get more of their board here. Now they're going to go for Whitebinder to banish. But then when they went to set a trap card, I was like, you know, I'm actually going to activate it here. Because here's my thought process, right? If this is GWC, then they're just going to have it anyway. They can just reset it off the Whitebinder. But at least they won't be able to use it to extend during their turn 1. If this is MTP, again, I at least made them use it. and they won't be able to set that off the White Rabbit, or use that off the White Rabbit for a follow-up turn. So, I decided to take my chances, but it seems like what my opponent did, and a lot of Maliss players that do this, is they set a random spell or trap card to bluff if they had a Maliss trap card. So, glad I took the chance there and tested them on it. They're just going to end up making a Firewall Dragon trying to pass here. But of course, I can simply nib away the Firewall Dragon and give them a 0 defense token in defense mode. They also have a token, which means Ketu is live here. We're going to begin by activating that. They're going to throw out Ash Blossom here. And also March Hare. Now, you'll notice that I did not chain Called By to the Ash Blossom. I chained it to the March Hare, and that got my opponent to concede. So a couple of reasons why that played out that way. One, I have Ketu and Phimena in hand already. I do not need this Ketu to resolve to win the duel, so I'm fine not using the Call By against it. However, them using March Hare to banish Whitebinder would be at least a little bit more complicated. So ultimately, I decided to just Call By the Whitebinder, not have to deal with it, and also minimize their impact on my turn. And sure enough, they saw what I was doing and just conceded right then and there. I got one last going second game to finish off here. And this is going to be a duel against Memento. Oh, Memento. This deck is like, it's still so cool and it's still so good, but I will say, in terms of just sheer power, it has definitely fallen off recently, as it is slowly getting power crept out of the meta. Alright, normal summon Anguish. They're going to use that in order to add the Tatsuno Toshigo, then activating Tatsuno Toshigo. It was kind of weird to have against Memento. There's not a ton that it does here. I noticed they sent the Mace and the Sleepy, which tells me they've got to have both Goblin and Gaddock in hand, right? At least Gaddock. So here I am going to use the Fulos against the Memento Infusion. They can chain Bone Party. That's fine. It is what it is. Sure enough, they did have the Goblin in hand. They popped that to summon the Darkblade, but do they really have the Gaddock too? They honestly might. Then they're going to go Creation King. I'm definitely going to use the Ash Blossom I top decked against the Creation King here. We'll be able to send 3, so that doesn't set up the field spell. It doesn't set up the combined creation. Looks like they're going to use the Mental Infusion, popping Darkblade to get access to the field spell. But after that, they're just going to activate the field spell, set 1, and then pass, resetting the Bone Party with the field spell, which is fine. Alright, so here I'm going to go normal summon Malulu, activate the effect. I actually should have activated Ketu first. Then, if they had chained... Well, no, that wouldn't have worked out that way. I was going to say, if they had chained Creation King, I could have then chained Malulu effect, but... Malulu effect to negate activates on a separate chain link. I'm going to use it here against the Creation King. Arthelion can wheel the Ash Blossom back to my hand. I'm going to use Ketu in order to add Phimena, and then fuse Phimena with the Arthelion I just summoned, probably to make Golem, I imagine, yep. Now we get these effects, and I can also use Golem to pop their field spell. That way we don't have to deal with the Memento McTillen, and obviously I didn't want to pop their Creation King, you know, only for them to summon back one of their other monsters and get its effect. I'm actually going to make a second Arthelion with the Rahu, because I really don't have too much other choice, but... Excuse me. It's definitely not all bad. I can revive my other Arthelion from the graveyard, and then, as I go to use Super Poly, I'll just get rid of their last remaining face-down card. They're going to Super Poly into Secretarian Dragon, but... they have a Banished card, so it just drops to 2900 attack, and then I can just run over it. So... the fact that they have the Floodgate out against me actually just does not matter at all here. I can even use Urgola to wheel Phimena back into hand, battle over Secretarian Dragon. Now they're in top deck mode and all they have is a negated Creation King. And Malulu negates the card for however long it's on the field, as my opponent's about to find out here. You know, it doesn't matter if the turn ended, so... there we go. We still had everything even into the... plays that the Memento player had set up there. Alright, let me show you the list and then we'll finish off. Okay, here is Magistus Dracotail. You'll notice that I am still playing Call By and Crossout in this build, because as I mentioned, this variant is just weaker to hand traps overall, especially Droll and Nib. So I still want to have outs to those. I mean, I could definitely see an argument for cutting them, like in, you know, branded or pure Dracotail. Callby and Crossout aren't needed as much because Dracotail isn't as weak to hand traps, and you'd kind of rather just have monsters diffuse away. But again, because we're on the Magistus variant, which plays more into hand traps, I wanted to still have access to these. But I think they are very optional, even for this variant. Yeah, so the stuff that's particular to this variant in the extra deck is going to be, here's the Iwas, the other Magistus card that I mentioned before. It's got a quick effect that it can target an opponent's face-up monster or any face-up monster in the field. And then, yeah, equip this card you control to it. And then if the equipped monster, if it was equipped to an opponent's monster, you take control of it. So that's how it takes your opponent's stuff. Yeah, so for some reason I was like, wait, did I misread this? I thought this equips... No, it doesn't equip your opponent's monsters to it. It equips to your opponent's monster, and then you steal it. But we can also just make these Aurora for negates. Snake Eyes Doom Dragon is used in your turn 1 combo line if you are playing your Spenta line. So that's why that's in here. But of course, we have the Borreload, which is made, and the Artemis, which is also definitely very much needed for the Magistus stuff. There is also... Another Magistus extra deck card you can play is the Nina Ruru. Definitely not bad to equip to your Magistus monsters. It lets them make 2 attacks, and it also lets you pop spell and trap cards. So you could play this and take out like Typhone, but I honestly think something like Typhone is probably going to come up a little bit more often. In any Magistus deck I've played, Nina Ruru doesn't come up a ton, but it's definitely still worth considering. So yeah, that's pretty much the variants here. It's still, like I said, very similar to like regular Dracotail, which I kind of think is Magistus's biggest weakness in my opinion. Like, yeah, there's the whole hand trap thing, but there's also just the fact that a lot of the time this engine just doesn't come up. You either don't open it, or if you do, it's a lot of the time just better to start with your Dracotail stuff anyway to play around those hand traps. So, I don't know. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. But in any case, thank you so very much for watching. Let us go ahead and move on to the outro to thank our YouTube members and patrons. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.